Hello, it's Leanne Hadley again, and you are at Pieta. We are continuing our study on the Let Them theory by Mel Robbins' book. I really love this study. I'm glad that you're part of it, and I'm glad that you've been here. We are on part 3 of chapter 2, and so we're finishing chapter 2 today. And I know we've gone slowly through this first part of this book, and we probably won't have time in our 6 weeks together to make it through the whole book. But I really think that understanding the theory at the front end makes it easier to start practicing it. And then if you're really interested in it, you can read the book and you can look at all the things that are in here. But practicing it is more important than learning about it. So I want to learn about it, and then I want to practice it for a couple of weeks. So that's what we're going to do together. Anyway, today we're going to end the second chapter and really dig into practicing the Let Them theory. But before we do that, she pauses, and I thought it was important for us to pause. She has this thing that says, before we dive in, 2 warnings. It's on page 47 if you have your book. And she asks if the Let Them theory applies to kids. And she said, yes, you can let them. There are things to let your kids do. I mean, if you've ever taken a love and logic class, they have a lot of let them, like if your kid doesn't have their shoes on, then let them go to school barefoot unless it's freezing cold outside and their toes are going to freeze. And it teaches them a lesson. So I don't know, you have to be careful about that. But there are times when you can let your kids, maybe they need to miss some homework assignments and see what that does to their grade. Maybe, there's lots of things that you do. It's case by case. And the shoe one I've always heard about, but I don't even know if I like that at all. Anyway, there are times to let them. And then there are times when you have to say, no, you do have to eat this food because it's good for your body. Or no, you're not going to eat junk food every day. Or no, you're not going to put your finger in that light socket. Or no, you're not going to crawl out the window at night anymore to meet your boyfriend or your girlfriend, whatever it is. So there are times when we as the adults have to take responsibility over those who are not as adult as us. That's our job. And we are mandatory reporters. So if we ever get the inclination that a child is going to hurt themselves or somebody else, we are mandated by law to tell someone that. So she says, not always can you use the let them theory. However, the more you can use it in safe settings, the better children will be. And they really will. They will grow in their confidence. Every time you trust a child and you say, well, I don't know if I would paint my room red. You might regret it, but sure, let's go buy some red paint. Or I don't know if you should go out with that person to the dance tonight. Well, you let them, they might learn a good lesson. It's just, there's times to use the let them theory and there's times when you can't, and that's going to be an individual choice for those of us who are parents and grandparents and all those things. So yes, you can use it with children, but the more you let them, the more you give them opportunities to make their own decisions, the better decision makers they're going to be. And in some ways, I think it's better to let them while they're younger, while you're there to kind of be their safety net, than to have the first time they're ever free to make a decision be when they're off to college or something and they've never made a decision in their lives. But she says this, and this is what I want us to ponder the first. We're going to have 2 breaks tonight. This is the first part of it. She says on page 48, every time I say let them, I am acknowledging that my kids are capable and stronger than I think. So when you say to your child, okay, you want to wear those shoes to school? Well, you know better about style than I do, or whatever it is. You're trusting them. And then the let me part reminds me that my job is in supporting, listening, and guiding, not controlling. So there's something about letting them, because it reminds us that they're capable and stronger than we ever imagined. And then our role is as those who support them. So they make decisions and we make sure that they don't have, to the best of our ability, lasting consequences that will haunt them for the rest of their lives. And we'll teach them valuable lessons. So I love that. And it made me think about our first question for the night. So I want you to listen to this tape and then break for a minute and ponder and discuss and then come back for part 2. So our question for this first part of tonight is, what is the difference, do you think, between guiding, listening, and supporting and control? And have you as a person experienced that as a child? Were you guided and supported, or were you controlled? And what do you think the difference is, and how do you think that affected you, and how do you think that affects the children in your life? So that's our first question. If our job is to support, listen, guide, and not control, what's the difference between listening, supporting, guiding, and controlling? And what has your experience with that been? Okay, take a break and then come back and we'll do part 2. So stop it now, and I'll see you in a minute. All right, I hope you found that helpful. So the second part of our thing tonight is where she says, what if using the let them makes you feel lonely? So some people are afraid to stop controlling and afraid of being, those who always give advice and are in control, whatever, because you're afraid that if you say, let them, they'll forget you. Or if you truly don't say, oh gosh, you hurt my feelings, I didn't get to go to the birthday party, and get yourself invited, then you're going to be sitting at home alone on the birthday party night and you're going to be lonely. And so she says, the way this works is that if all you ever say is let them, you're going to find yourself without friends. If that's just your attitude, because that's glib and it's silly. So everything, I don't want to go eat. Just just get on my face. You get an attitude, right, or whatever. And she says the important part is the let me. Go ahead and do your life and see what happens. And I was thinking about this. I was thinking, when you're passionate about something, when you find a purpose, when you're really doing what you're excited about, you tend to attract other people that are excited about that with you. And I was thinking about the potential that we have if we let go of the things that aren't serving us well, the people, the situations, whatever. If we really let go of those and we move into this is what I want to do, and you get excited about it, other people are drawn to you. And I was thinking about how many new friends you might make if you let them and then you do what God calls you to do. You may find friends that you never dreamed of, and new situations and new things to do that you would have never done had you stayed on this merry-go-round with the same old, same old, same old. So what she says is, don't worry about not having friends. Just do it and see what opens up. And I was thinking about the scripture for tonight is from Acts 1, 15 through 26. And I was thinking, after Jesus died and they were very confused, they also had lost one of their 12. And that was a huge loss for them. I'm sure they did a lot of processing around what happened to Judas, how did he do this to Jesus? And then, of course, he had killed himself. So they're in grief over a friend, and they have mixed emotions. They're mad at him, but they're also grieving his loss. And, there was no way that these people hung around together for 3 years and didn't get extremely close right there in the loving presence of God. And so they're, I'm sure they could have stayed in that sort of what happened. And that's kind of what happens when we don't just let them and move on. We get sort of mired in it. We just get engulfed in it, whatever we're talking about. Why didn't I get to go to the party? How could they treat me this way? How does she have another friend? Why doesn't my boss see me as a good person? On and on and on. And when we let me, we move on. And this is an interesting story in Acts 1. I've never preached on it. I've never really thought of it before, but it came to me. And basically what happens is that they're praying. They're in a prayer meeting, and it goes on for several days. They're trying to think, what do we do next? Jesus is gone. He's gone to heaven now. He told us, the Holy Spirit has come, but what do we do? And Peter stands up and he addresses them as follows. And anyway, he says, he tells the story of Judas, and he goes on, and then he says, but the work still has to go on. Judas is gone, but there's still work to be done. So let us choose someone to take Judas's place and join us in the witness of Christ's resurrection. Let us select someone who's been with us. And the assembly nominates 2 men, Joseph Justus and Matthias, and they pray. and they vote and they decide that Matthias is the one who becomes the new apostle. You know, they could have just sat there paralyzed in the talking about it, rehashing it, talking about their feelings, da 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 da. But Peter reminds them, look, let them. That's the choice that Judas made. He's done. I mean, the man has died, for heaven's sakes. Let it go. Let them. And now we have got work to do. Let that go so that we can do the things that we are called to do. And they do. They elect Matthias and they go out and they do wonders throughout the whole world. So the question to ponder in this second one is, have you ever moved on from a situation that you wanted so badly, but it was just kind of toxic for you? And what happened as a result of that? Did you make new friends? Did you have a new relationship? What happened after you let go of something that just no longer served you, wasn't good for you? What happened when you let them and let yourself move on? Share those stories and then come back together and share them with one another. This is important. You know, life is all about growth and change. And so much of the time we think it's about, you know, keeping the same old, same old, same old. Nothing in nature stays the same. Everything is in constant change. The earth is always turning. The sun is rising, setting. All trees blooming, dying. I don't know why as human beings we think, oh no, this is set in stone. We have to keep this forever. Let them theory really reminds us that life moves on. Let them and go be the person that you're called to be and see what friends you might make after you start being your authentic self and doing the work that you are called to do. We shouldn't be lonely when we practice the let them theory. All right, have a great day, and I will see you next week. Read chapter 3 and we'll discuss it. Thanks. Bye.